Hi, welcome to everybody to our SWAPA virtual meeting. This is our quarterly virtual meeting. We are going to be talking to a host of people today. Welcome. We'll go ahead and set the agenda. So we're going to do a little quick introduction of who's on the call. Then we'll cut over to the executives to have them give us some comments. Our EFA committee will give us a second quarter financial update over SWA's financials. We'll do a quick update from our SRC, and then we'll get to your member question and answers. Let's go ahead and get started. Our introductions today on the call, we have Casey Murray, President, Mike Santoro, who is the Vice President, Tom McCoy, Second Vice President, SRC Chair Scott Plyler, Contract Admin Committee Member Dave Kudish, Negotiating Committee Member Jody Revin, Chair Jody Revin, and Member Damian Jeanette, EFA Committee Member Greg Auld, and our Communications Committee Member Kurt Heidemann. And before we get started, I do want to say thank you to our IT department and to all of the comm department for all of their backup and support on this call. Moving on, we'll go ahead and open with the executives, and I'm going to turn this over to Casey Murray to go ahead and kick us off.
Hi. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to some of our update and get a flavor for what's going on in Dallas. I want to thank everyone, all of our pilots out there, for being at ground zero for safety. We're going through some really trying times with the network, and at the end of the day, the backstop is you. And so just a big thank you to continue to maintain that. We've spoken to our peers across the industry, other labor groups. We've spoken to the FAA, and what we're facing here at Southwest is really unique to our time. And we've carried that message to upper leadership. We just got through with a meeting with flight ops and flight ops leadership, and it's got to stop. We can't keep looking to tomorrow. This has to stop today. The challenges that we're fighting the same failures, the same stresses, the same error chains are being put before you each day. So our message to all of leadership has been, there has to be a correction. Our pilots are out there every day fighting the battles, and it stops with you. You are the ones out there dealing with not flying your line, reroutes, waiting for gates, food, rest, hotels. The list is endless, and it is definitely recognized by us. And I do want to say thank you. At the end of the day, just continue to be the backstop for safety. And with that, I'll turn it over to our first VP, Mike Santoro.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing out there? Little update for me. Of course, I'm the COVID guy, so I'll give you a little COVID update. The Delta variant, as you hear in the news, it's also making some waves here at Southwest. It's causing a noticeable uptick in cases. The company has eliminated the COVID contacting group, which was in the headquarters, and now it's just on the chief pilots to make those contact tracing calls. As the numbers go up, they are thinking about reinstituting that COVID contacting group. So you may get a call from chief, or you may get a call from that group. Either way, the questions are going to be the same. Have you been vaccinated? Have you had COVID in the last 90 days? And if the answer to those two questions are yes, then nothing has to be done. If the answer to those questions are no, then you have some quarantining to do, and the normal standard quarantine protocol still stands the same, the 10 days from last exposure. There are, some idiosyncrasies to special cases. So as always, feel free to call me, my cell phone, text me, however you want to get a hold of me. I'm available 24/7 for you. So, feel free to reach out to me with any questions on the COVID. One downside, which you'll notice, I'm sure, is that the company has stopped providing CC pool for all COVID pulls, including the crew contact pulls, which is unfortunate and upsets us. We have contacted or talked to them as late as an hour ago about reinstituting CDC pulls. We made it a point to, the whole thing is at Southwest is that, if it can't be just one group that gets something, the whole company has to get it. And we argue that, pilots are different. And in this case, pilots and flight attendants are different because we are definitely adversely affected on a much higher level with crew contact tracing, especially with the FAA SAFO that requires us to quarantine in place. No other group has that. And so, and that's all with on the job stuff, not personal stuff. So we have talked to them and impressed upon them the need for them to bring back the CC pulls and for any kind of crew contact issues. And they are going to bring that to their leadership above them. And so we'll keep you posted on how all that goes. Let's see, OGI. So if you do get a crew contact call, on the job, I consider it a non-job injury. Some states do as well. OGI is very state specific. So far, we found out that Florida and Texas do not find it to be an OGI issue, but we haven't pressed the test in any of the other bases. So if you have a contact tracing issue where you're pulled and have to use your sick time, please file an OGI report with your base coordinator and let me know when you do, so we can keep track of it and see which bases which states are approving the COVID OGIs. And that will help out a lot with any kind of sick bank that people have or don't have, I should say. Let's see, again, quarantines are still the same, 10 and 20 days, depending on personal quarantines. Of course, you have a 20-day quarantine if you can't isolate yourself from that person. Again, all out of your sick bank, so keep that in mind. Close contact is 6 feet for 15 minutes or more, cumulative. So be sure to know that numbers when you get calls. To find out, when they ask you if you've been in close contact, if that hasn't happened, then you can answer no safely and save your sick time. Conversely, if you have had close contact, we don't want to spread COVID around the system. So be honest and let them know what's going on there. Remember, SWA does follow the CDC guidelines, good, bad, or indifferent. They've been doing it from the beginning, and they continue to do it now. So that's where the 90 days comes from since you've had COVID, and the vaccines are now unlimited time frame on vaccines for quarantine. So if you have any questions about where they're getting this data or information, it's all out of the CDC website. Last thing I want to talk about is employee relation employee relation complaints are kind of on the rise. So be vigilant out there, be nice to each other. Be sure you have a witness. If anything escalates, get another pilot next to you to kind of, be next to you for the confrontation if there is one. Just try to de-escalate everything. Everybody's frustrated. It's challenging out there on all sides of the company, including passengers. So it's lines, and frustrations upon frustration. So I appreciate all the hard work you're doing out there. Again, I'm available 24/7, so feel free to call me anytime. And I'll give it on to Tom.
Hold on, Tom, we got a little technical difficulty here. Just 1 second.
How about now?
Better. Thank you, Tom.
You bet. All right. Just wanted to echo what Casey and Mike said. Thanks for being on here and staying engaged. I am right now dealing, it's budget season at SWAPA. I'll keep it brief. I have an RP article coming out next month that'll be more granular, but just a 30,000 foot view. We're doing a couple of things differently this year to more so fall in line with our strategic plan of creating that balanced budget. Traditionally, we've kind of copied and pasted the budget from the year prior, and had done maybe some edits here and there. And this year we've got a new finance director, Brian Hickman, and Hank Ketchum's back here at SWAPA, and myself. We're creating more of an operational budget, which will be way more realistic. And so we're doing kind of a monthly operational budget that kind of falls in line within that annual budget, where we're kind of looking at what corporations do in terms of running their budgets and making it more efficient, making a business case for everything we do, from laptop purchases to big contracts. And we're running about 3 to 4 weeks ahead of schedule right now, year over year, where the budget deadline is. We'll have it to your board of directors well in advance of the September board meeting for their review and approval. That's basically most of the stuff I do. Operationally, we've been dealing with along the lines of what Southwest is dealing with every day operationally, is some jump seat issues. We just got out of a meeting with Flight Ops leadership. And if specifically it's pilots being denied jump seats by ops agents or CSAs, and we need to know, I need to know. So if that happens, call me, email the jump seat committee that I'm actually a part of. I see those emails come through, and then we can follow up. We've been doing it on a case-by-case basis, and it's a hot item right now. And we've got Flight Ops has promised that they're gonna mitigate it with a soon-to-come video to everybody from the VP of Ground Ops and VP of Flight Ops. That's basically it. I'll keep it short. Give me a call anytime. Our phones, the execs especially, are on 24/7. Anything you need or any questions you might have. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. Now we're going to move on to EFA, and I think Damien Jeanette is going to give our report on the Southwest second quarter financials. Damien?
Thanks, Amy. Everybody, thanks for being here and watching this. So one of the things that we look at is the adjusted operating income or loss for the quarter. There you go, next slide, thank you. Basically what the adjusted operating income loss is looking at is the core business. Remember, it's just the revenue minus the expenses and then adjusting the special items. And this is before interest and taxes. But with $4 billion in revenue on the right-hand side there, you can see the second quarter of 2021. That gives us about a negative 4% margin for the quarter. So if you go to the next slide is GAAP, generally accepted accounting principle. So in other words, you're not adjusting for special items. The reason this is so important is because this is what kind of the profit sharing looks at. And we'll look at it here in 1 second, but this includes PSP. This does include some of the fuel hedge premiums and such. And it's right now in line with the historical Q2 going back to 2014. So we're starting to come back to normal. It's starting to feel like normal. Cash burn and cash flow, that's a metric that we don't really love on the EFNA, but because it can be manipulated a little bit. But for the quarter, or actually for the months in the quarter, April and May, we had a cash burn of about $1 million a day, and then June was a cash flow, or it was positive, of $4 million a day. And so I have to apologize to our board of directors because the EFNA back in September gave our board estimations of what this first half of the year would look like, and we told them that our expectation was a break even in May, so we were a month off. So I apologize for that rough estimation. But the whole reason we want to look at the cash burn, or I'm sorry, the GAAP operating income and loss is that it looks like it does look at profit sharing. So next slide. So with the profit sharing, it's 15% of earnings before taxes. So that does include interest. But we had 85 million for Q2 and 24 million for Q1. So both of those quarters, though, adds up to 109 million. A lot of that was due to the PSP monies. So the good news is, now that we're past second quarter, going into third quarter, we should be able to stand on our own feet with profit sharing, not having to worry about PSP anymore, keeping us afloat. Next slide. I'll kind of push through this. So the last one is the balance sheet. We are industry leading, so our contract should be too, but we should all be proud that our balance sheet looks so good. So remember, looking on the right-hand side of the balance sheet, you see the 16.9 billion there. That's cash equivalents, and short-term investments, minus a debt of 11.4 billion gives you a net cash of 5.5 billion. So we had excess cash. So during the height of the pandemic, I'm sorry, so just thinking about like Delta, right? Second quarter for Delta, they had 15.2 billion in cash, minus a debt of 29 billion makes them a negative 13 billion in net debt. So it's a negative number, right? Ours was 5.5 cash. So it's look good. Everything's looking good, and we're well positioned if COVID Part Delta were to happen, and we're well positioned for Contract 2020 rewrite. And with that, I will pass it back.
Thank you for that, Damien. Next up, we're going to go ahead and talk to Scott Plyler, and he's going to give us an SRC update. Scott?
Hey, everybody. Just kind of go over a brief how we got here, some current issues, and a few things that we're getting questions about on the look forward. So next slides. How do we get here? Well, that's really what everybody is feeling out on the line right now with the JAs, the excessive reroutes, and the unscheduled overnights. Really, this started, we had a huge network ramp up in the schedule. To go with that, we had an aggressive Etops expansion, which kind of constrained a lot of our training capacity in May, and then also going into June. Another issue that we had is we didn't quite have enough training capacity to bring back all of the XTOs that were scheduled to come back off XTO 2, plus all the recalls in June and then July. As you can see from the chart, the grays and the blues were the June recalls and returns, and we were only able to get about 2/3 of those even trained in June. And so we had a lot of spillover, and that's also delaying the July recalls as well. So what's happening is they're bidding lines, all of their flying is getting thrown back into the system, into the blank lines, and then open time. And then obviously they're not available to fly while they're waiting for training. So even though it looks like we have appropriate staffing, those pilots aren't trained, they're not able to fly. And then once they are able to be trained because of the ETO MOU, when they come back, they're not really incentivized to fly because they're giving line guarantee. It's something that we tried to discuss with labor relations, but they didn't want to hear about it. Next slide. Today's reality is what you see out on the line. Guys are really picking up a lot of open time. I know the company appreciates that, and that tries to cut down a lot of the reroutes and such, but the reality is that we're pretty much tapped out of the open time market right now. You all are flying so much of the open time that nobody's actually legal to do anything anymore. And even when they get to the JA process for open time, when nobody bids on it and there's no reserves left, there's actually nobody left to actually JA. And that's why you see the reassignments where you get the double time, the DT legs on it, because those are JA done pairings. I will say that our staff at SRCs worked on our audit code and sent it over to the contract admin, and they're actually capitalizing on that and making sure that your pairings get audited correctly for that double time. It's really hard for you guys to see that. But right now, it's kind of a horrible online experience. We know that. I've been reassigned every time I've gone flying. I know the execs have as well. And you getting all these JAs and reassignments in the days off. We're at record numbers of that. That's no surprise to any of you. In fact, it's even more so than when we saw even during Hurricane Harvey just a few years ago. So record JAs. Also, it doesn't help that the on-time performance is absolutely in the toilet right now, down in the 60%. It's gotten a little bit better in July, but it's still the worst July we've had on record. Next slide. Because of that, you're seeing all the reassignments, and as usual, no surprise here, it's the inefficient reassignments as well. Only about 1 out of 4 pairings are actually broken that get pulled into a SkySolver reassignment. This is something that we're pushing in the 2020 contract to reduce the unbroken pairings, folks that don't have anything wrong with their schedule, no cancellations, no misconnects getting thrown into the hopper and get reassigned. But because we're understaffed, that means more flyings going uncovered, going to JA, and then into reassignments. Problem is those reassignments tend to have more deadheads, tight connections, long duty days, and short overnights. And then when you make have horrible on-time performance, all those things break, and it all happens all over again, and folks get reassigned yet again. Next slide. One common example, this is actually a really simple one. We get accused of cherry picking examples, but I could probably look at any one of your boards in the last month and find an example just like this, where you had a trip, whether it was open time or your original trip, you got reassigned, you wound up doing less flying and less legs than you were originally scheduled, and wound up getting paid more as well, which, hey, that's a really good deal, but you wind up deadheading all over the place, sitting in the back, taking up passenger seats on already crowded. It's probably not a great experience for you all. Sit next to folks that are complaining about the experience and wearing their masks. And this is just showing you how inefficient the reassignments are. We're trying to push for smarter reassignments in the 2020 proposal. We're not getting any luck whatsoever with our proposals voluntarily right now, though. Next slide. One issue that's really causing a little bit concern for us actually is late hotel assignments. I know you're having trouble getting a hold of scheduling, and scheduling actually doesn't run your hotels. It's chat knock now, but the name's changed, but the result is the same. You can't get a hold of them, where you're getting late hotel assignments, especially after you've been reassigned. The problem is that we're bumping up against FAR legalities here. You're supposed to have 10 hours free from duty, though that can include transportation. But the bottom line is you need to have 8 hours of sleep opportunity in your room. When you don't have a timely hotel when you're getting in, then you wind up a high risk of violating FAR 117 rest, that 8-hour sleep opportunity. We're seeing numerous examples. This is just a small sample that we have on the screen. We try to de-identify it, where folks are arriving and then it's taking hours, 3, 4, sometimes we've seen up to 7 hours for a hotel to be assigned, and that will cut into your rest and make you possibly illegal. The big thing to remember here is that you are authorized to get your own hotel. Generally, we say don't try to call them 3 times in a row over 5 minutes and then give up. Give it about 30 minutes. But after about 30 minutes, if you're looking at you're going to have a rest issue or wind up having fatigue, go ahead and make that call. You can get transportation, get the hotel, be reasonable. And you can get that reimbursed. Be sure you get reimbursed, and also call crew scheduling at some point and try to get your times adjusted. That way you don't get reassigned into yet another move up. Next slide. Just to make sure you know that we're not just blowing smoke at you, the flight ops update from June 16th actually explicitly said this, if you're unable to reach chat knock or crew scheduling after a reasonable amount of time, that's kind of up to you. We're saying give it at least 30 minutes, then you are allowed to get hotels and transportation. Next slide. Just to highlight this is actually somebody we know at SWAPA. They wound up getting a reassignment out to Las Vegas. They actually got in at 2200. The hotel wasn't assigned until 0500. The good news is that he did get his own hotel, and therefore he wasn't illegal, but it just goes to show you that nobody seems to know where the crews are, and we want to make sure that you guys stay legal. Next slide. As far as the network goes, next slide. As you know, we definitely have been understaffed. The blue line shows you the number of flights, whereas the green and the gray line show you line guarantee, the level of flights for line guarantee, the level of flights where SWAPA believes we would wind up having FAR 117 issues. And obviously June, July, we're having that. As we do get the XTO folks back online into August, that should be mitigated quite a bit. So you'll see some reduction in the RONs and the JAs and the reassignments. We'll probably see a reduction again in September, but currently the schedule as it sits for October, which we expect to be cut again by the end of this week, we're probably going to see it ramp back up again for the holidays. And we don't have quite enough time to bring back XTOs or even do new hires. So we expect we'll probably see some more issues going into November and December. Next slide. As far as future staffing, I know lots of rumors floating around on the line. I know you've seen the Bob Waltz announce they're planning on doing 2 classes of 60 pilots each in December for new hires. Exto recalls, there's still 479 outstanding that are all FOs right now. We'll probably start seeing them come back into the fall, but you're probably going to see a few new hire classes start before all the Extos come back, just because they have a much longer lead time for training before they hit the line than Exto recalls. Etops expansion is probably mostly complete for now. When we bring back all these FO off of Exto, you're probably going to see a bunch of upgrades as well, so you'll probably start seeing those in the fall. And the new hires obviously will drive some additional movement between seats, and we'll get some of the folks that got displaced back on right of return. Next slide. This one just shows you can probably look at it later, but it shows you that we're pretty much understaffed on the FO side and pretty much all of the bases, and that's exactly what you're feeling out there. The FOs are having the JAs and the unscheduled overnights at a rate of at least 2 to 1 compared to the captains. Once we do start growing back again, bringing folks back, we'll probably see Denver start to expand a little bit. They'd like to expand LAX some more, but they're trying to prevent even more displacements for now. And actually, Orlando could probably use a little more manning as well. So for right now, we just have a lot of imbalances due to the Extos that are out and the way the network is recovering, and it hasn't been balanced across the whole system. Next slide. One more, just some timeline reminders. The September vacancy gets awarded on Thursday. September schedule gets finalized later this week, and then we'll know what the cut is to October as well. We'll probably see some Exto recall information for October returns if they are going to do them for October. You would see that in mid-August. That way they would know how many people are coming back for the October vacancy, which happens at the end of August. So that would be the same for November. You would probably see a recall notice in September, so right before the vacancy opens for that. Next slide. We have a lot of resources that SRC is trying to put out, whether it's general comm. Make sure that you're subscribed to the snapshots. We send targeted emails when you're displaced. If you're getting early recall, we'll send you a Q&A. We also put out podcasts and reporting points, and obviously we're doing this right now. Next slide. If you don't know where to find some of this stuff on the new website, we just remind you, you go to resources at the bottom, click, go to tools, or you can go to committees, and then communications also has all the articles and emails and podcasts. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and open up to member question and answers. We have received quite a few via email this time, so we're going to actually start with those since people did take the time to go ahead and send them in. We'll go ahead and start with the first one. This is from Kit. This is a COVID-related question, so I'm going to send this to Mike. I heard recently that United is paying their pilots to get vaccinated and using a tiered incentive. Besides the 1,000 swag points for telling the company you're vaccinated, is there any talk of a legitimately paying pilots to get vaccinated?
So, interesting enough, Jody and NC brought this to their opposition at the company, Carl and team, and asked them, about incentivizing vaccinations for Southwest pilots, and they were told no. So we did broach the subject. We tried, and they evidently don't think that our pilots are worthy of compensation. So, in my opinion, they're trying to do the workaround by taking away the CC pool, and which is obviously problematic.
Thanks, Mike. Next up, we have, with the new predicted 120 hiring in December, what bases are predicted to see the most growth? For example, 2021 was the year of Etops. Scott sort of answered this one about the Denver growing with the new terminal gates. Are there any other cities? I know you kind of answered that already, Scott, but is there anything that you haven't already mentioned?
Denver's pretty much the area it's at. We might see some more movement maybe into Houston and Orlando as we get some of the international back, but right now it's mainly focused on Denver.
Thank you. Our next question is, why would SWAPA turn down the free no strings attached double pay, which has been extended to other work groups from the 1st of July to the 17th of, it says August, but I do actually believe that that's it was just the 1st through the 7th of July. Casey or Jody, do you one of you want to answer this one?
Sure, Amy, I can take that if you like. So what we wouldn't is the short answer. We wouldn't turn down, and it was never offered from the 1st to the 17th. It was talked about around the 1st to the 6th, and it wasn't true double time. What the company offered, they called Casey on a Sunday afternoon, and he called me and said, "You're about to get a call, be ready." And they offered double time on the legs. And they actually clarified and said, "Hey, if the rig would absorb this, we're just going to pay it the rig." So you could end up just getting the ADG for something. Also problematic was there wasn't going to be a way to multiple problems, but there wasn't going to be a way to code that to let the members know what the true pay would be when they bid on it. And then the timeline for the governance process wasn't such that we could get this thing done in time and through the board of directors, though we tried. Our company and our union and the SRC specifically put together a proposal that tried to fix some of the symptoms as well and try to put the double time together. The company took a break for about 4 hours. They came back at about 4:40 in the afternoon with a 5 o'clock stop and said they redlined our entire proposal and just left double time on the legs. So short answer is we would not have turned down the true double time. Long answer, you just got, so my apologies. We also pointed out to the company that they were going to end up paying double time. And as of today, we've paid 55 JA events, unfortunately, in the last 2 days. So anyway, short answer, long.
Thanks, Jody. Our next question is actually for Casey. My question for the meeting is, where are we at with privacy in the EFB? Is SWAPA still recommending for pilots to not use the company-issued crew app? This is from Bobby S.
Yeah, we're still recommending not using it. I did have a discussion with Amy over at the EFB, but we failed to come to an agreement with labor relations on it. We had several concerns, but as it stands today, we do not have an EFB MOU. We have protections via the contract on our electronic data, and so we're relying on that, and we do not have an MOU. So until we do not recommend using the apps.
Okay, our next question is, of the last year, one could argue that there has been several instances of status quo violations, i.e. hindsight, non-contractual VSP and XTO programs, along with an insistence of infrequent virtual negotiating meetings. At what point does SWAPA see an advantage of approaching the NMB for mediation, and why hasn't it happened yet? I'm going to give this one to Jody. This is from Sam F.
So Sam, that is always a tool in our toolbox for sure, as in the RLA, as you know, that if a party is not negotiating in good faith, some folks like Delta, they had in their contract that there's a certain amount of time. Now the NMB process does slow things down, and we do have a lot of sections that we needed to get through that were very work rule specific. We needed to have drilled down explanations. So going forward, I think you will see a tougher stance when it comes to that, and mediation is a tool that that could be in our toolbox should our board of directors direct that. But at this time, it wasn't strategically on our side, for lack of a better term, to enter mediation.
Thanks, Jody. Our next question is, will all remaining XTO FOs be required or offered the opportunity to return prior to the start of the first new hire class? And I think Scott already answered that. Really and truly, it's because of the training timeline. It's going to take a little bit longer to train new hires so that they'll actually come before we actually see the rest of the XTOs, is what the answer he gave earlier.
Yes.
Okay, what is being done, if anything, at the GO to fix the weight and balance issues we've been created for ourselves? Or will it be dealing with bumping passengers, jump seaters, and non-rovers in perpetuity? I'm going to say, Casey, do you have any background on this, or?
I think Mike probably has a better, he's dealing with the jump seat and the weight issues if he wants to jump in here. Otherwise, I can cover it.
Yeah, so we addressed the company on the weight issues and how we're actually different in passenger weights than like American. We're 2 pounds heavier than American, and their counter to that was they're looking in to figure out why our weights are different than everybody else's. Evidently, they did a polling and an average of weights, and that's how they came to our weight. They also said that our bags are a couple pounds less than American bags. Now, the real problem is that we have more passengers in our airplane than any other airline does, like American, United. So those 2 pounds per passenger equates to 2 jump seaters. So, and then I'll hand over to Tom for the jump seat aspect of this.
Actually unmuted this time. Yeah, so what Mike touched on a little, we just got out of a meeting. We've been working this for a while now, especially the uptick in jump seat denials. And a lot of it goes back to the new weights that aren't going away, the ones that we have to deal with from the feds down. But also there's a lot of miscommunication between departments. And we were just told basically an hour ago that the VP of Flight Ops and the VP of Ground Ops have made a joint video that's going to go out. Basically, as far as the jump seat is concerned, that the jump seat is never to be denied by the CSA or the ops agent. So the pilots must be issued those jump seat passes and then deal with the weight restrictions later once the captain gets involved and dispatcher gets involved. So that's coming out apparently this week, we were told, and we're hoping that, and also the other thing that's been going on is the order of deplanement. In other words, if it's determined that there is an overweight issue, there's been a lot of discrepancies between flight ops and ground ops, actually ground ops really, about who comes off first. And so we were promised today that those are going to be dealt with, that they have been dealt with directly with the VP of ground ops. And that's why we need to know, I personally need to know, even with a phone call, regardless of what time of night, or email to the jump seat committee, if that's still going on across the system. So if anybody's denied a jump seat or is taken off due to a weight restriction after boarding, out of order, basically, we need to know. And so email us, call us, and we'll send those up the pole back to flight ops leadership. But we're hoping that with this video coming out, that ground ops is notified and that they will actually listen to the VP of ground ops and change the way they're doing things, which is actually against our CBA. So keep us posted.
Thanks, Tom. This one is for Casey. What is SWAPA's position on the tyrannical mask policy imposed by the TSA, and when will it end? What will be SWAPA's position if they extend the September deadline again, basically keeping it in place indefinitely?
Well, I had a aviation roundtable yesterday and spoke to Administrator Dixon on this point, and have been in contact with the CDC, TSA, and the FAA over the past several months. We are pushing strongly for either the mask mandate to expire on September 13th, but also pivoting that if it is extended in the cabin, that our pilots will not be subject to that. And I didn't state that exactly right. We are pushing clearly for the mask mandate to be withdrawn. But if it's not, and there is concern that it isn't, how is it going to be dealt with? And we're pushing for a lot stronger civil and even the Department of Justice getting involved, which there's been over 3,000 instances throughout the industry that have caused passengers to be removed and at times forcefully removed. And we want to see those those ended with stronger enforcement actions. So number one, we want to see the mask mandate disappear, and we're pushing very hard for that. We're pushing for it on the Hill, as well as on our end with the individual stakeholders within the government, and the company is very strongly engaged as well along the same lines. So we're going to continue to push. Hopefully, when September 13th rolls around, that it does expire.
This is just a comment, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. This is aimed toward the MC, but in order to meet the FAA requirements, I am required to have a certain medical testing done that is above and beyond my regular doctor's visits. This testing ends up costing me close to $2,000 out of pocket. I would like to see all expenses incurred in obtaining a medical covered. I think Damien, do you want to speak to that at all?
Sure, more than happy to. So that is addressed in Contract 2020. That actually did poll pretty well in the SEP process. But especially in that case, I'm assuming this is in a special issuance, then yes, our expectation is for the company to cover that, because you're hired for obviously your skill, your character, but also your ATP and your medical certificate. So the ATP and medical certificate is very vital. So that's our expectation.
Thank you, Damien. The next question is, I imagine we're looking to improve all-encompassing work rules, disability benefits, and hopefully pay. Is there anything slated which we're giving up? I feel like there's got to be a give and take. What are we planning on giving or planning to give? Jody, you want to touch on that one?
Sure. It's not our position or our place to plan on giving up any of our work rules or anything in return. I think in the past that's always been kind of a faulty assumption that, hey, you guys need to give something in order to get something. Just as bad as there's one big pot of money and you guys decide how to split it between the captains and FOs. Horrible thinking as well. So we are in our industry, of course, you can't help but have comparisons as to what it costs to pay a pilot. And we are in a situation where Mr. Kelly, back in 2012, made the market rate argument. If you'll remember the plumbers and the electricians stickers that went around there. So, you pay us like what the market pays, and the market has far surpassed us. So at this time, in order to attract the best possible talent, the best possible person sitting in that right seat, we're not going to be able to get there with concessions. We can't concede anything. In fact, we have a lot of catch up to make up to make sure we get the best and brightest.
Yeah, and I'd like to jump in for just a minute. As we move forward, we have to look at a few things negotiating wise. One of them is look at what each of you are dealing with out there every day. You're asked to go above and beyond, and you're asked to be the airline leaders in safety. And so we don't feel that we have to give up anything. We are pushing for much stronger scheduling rules that will hopefully drive efficiency. That we can then use as, once the company realizes those efficiencies and realizes the benefit to them on that instance, then we don't have to give up anything. So sort of a double-edged way to look at it there, but we're not willing to give up anything, especially with what you're being put through out there every day. You're basically bidding a line and you're not flying it. You might as well just have reserved to all our pilots, because when you go out there, you're being asked to do different trips through the reroutes and the reroute process that the company uses. So that's our stance. We'll continue to hold the line on that, and I'm very optimistic that we'll get there.
Thanks, Casey. Our next question is sort of an answer, but I'll go ahead and ask it again. Is SWAPA applying pressure to our government to discontinue persecuting our customers by forcing them to wear a respiratory limiting device, despite the fact that every big box store throughout the U.S. holds more people in close proximity with virtually no mandates? If not, then I'd like to ask respectfully, why not? Casey, you want to go ahead and I think you kind of touched on this, but you want to just follow up with that?
Yeah, can you read it again for me?
Of course. Is SWAPA applying pressure to our government to discontinue persecuting our customers by forcing them to wear a respiratory limiting device, despite the fact that every big box store throughout the U.S. holds more people in close proximity with virtually no mandates? And if not, he would like to know why we're not applying pressure.
Yeah, we are absolutely applying pressure. We're applying pressure. We're in constant conversations with the company on this. As I said, just spoke yesterday and last week and the week before, as well as throughout April and May on this exact thing through to the FAA, TSA, CDC. And so our Government Affairs Committee is pushing this very hard on the Hill as well. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and we feel the exact same way. The mask mandate has to go.
Thank you, Casey. Our next question, right of return. As a junior captain in recent months, I've been on the cusp of losing my seat in my current base. I live in base and have my vacancy set as California. I'm sorry, as captain, then FO in current base. Having upgraded over 3 years ago, Lance is not an option for me. How about a right of return to any seat and base that a pilot is displaced from? Jody, you want to take this one?
So just really quick, and then Scott can come on and drill down a little further. But at this time, we don't have any direction to do a right of return to a seat, which would actually skip the seniority process. Now, we certainly have voted in several ways throughout the contract to, in fact, subvert seniority. The cap is an example, trip trade giveaway, ELIT. But at this time, our board of directors has not given us any direction to pursue a right of return to a specific seat.
Just to kind of follow up with that, our last contract is where we got the first right of return actually implemented. It's one of those things for contracts where you try to get a concept into the contract first, and then you can build upon that. So we do have improvements that we're asking for in the domicile right of return. Certainly making it to any base and seat that you've been displaced from. We have to work through the logic of that. When we have multiple displacements going multiple directions, you have to make sure you don't get into a lockup situation where people have right of returns crossing each other and locking up the vacancy system. But it's certainly something we're trying to improve on the domicile right of return. We're just not quite there yet.
Thank you, Scott. My next question is actually for Scott again. Has the policy of daily open time and premium open time prior to assigning reserves helped reduce reroutes, JAs, and reduce the duty period inflation?
Well, as we talked about in our presentation, we're kind of getting tapped out on the open time market. So yes, it certainly has helped to have the premium open time. Obviously, daily open time gets awarded regardless prior to reserves, but having the premium going first helps get bodies into the system. But the problem is that we still are understaffed, even with getting people out on the line, and then you're getting reassigned on top of that. So I know everybody's getting a little bit tired of the reassignments, and that's not really helping out with the open time participation. We're starting to see that decline a little bit, and that's probably what contributed to a lot of the JAs this weekend.
Thank you, Scott. This next question is, the legacies have all posted numbers of 1,000+ new hires next year, coupled with relatively quick upgrades. After Christmas war notices went out last year, the never any furloughs attraction from pilot applicants to Southwest has lost its potency. How is SWAPA and the negotiating committee impressing upon the company the need to work out an industry-leading contract in order to stay competitive in future pilot hiring? I'm going to go ahead and let Jody take this one.
So this is something we talk about a lot, and it's an excellent question. The company pats themselves on the back all over Main Street and Wall Street about never furloughing anybody. They leave out the fact that those war notices went out, and they're very salient to 1,221 people, I can promise you. And we bring that up often. Mr. Kwitsky brought up the fact that one of our asks would be unprecedented. And Kurt Heidemann was saying, well, certainly it would be industry leading. And he said, no, but it would be unprecedented. And so we point out that most things are unprecedented if they're industry leading. And then coming up here, you got some new hires, and we've already had, I want to say this year, 12 new hires leave to go to greener pastures. We also have impressed on the company that fact. So we keep track of that. We try to get some follow up with those folks about why they left, but the company is acutely aware of the shortage that's coming, and we'll continue to bring that message to them.
Thank you, Jody. What will our industry do if lockdowns start ramping up and the airplanes are no longer filling up due to a largely non-lethal virus, which cannot be prevented by wearing masks? This seems like maybe a Casey question.
Yeah, we will continue, as I've stated to the two previous questions, that there is a threat from the Delta virus. Public appearance, as well as how the CDC responds to it. And we will respond accordingly. We are in constant contact, with the legislators and the government entities that control that. All of labor is really broadcasting the same message, that it is driving a lot of passenger behavior, as well as other frustrations on the passenger's part. But as far as, you and I wearing them and what we believe, we are continuing to push, and we will continue with the company, with the government, and with the enforcement entities that are out there. But we hope it ends on the 13th of September, and we're going to continue to push for that.
Thanks, Casey. Our next question is, I think this is going to be for Mike. What if we refuse to answer vaccination status?
Yeah, so the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, kind of ruled that employers can ask about vaccination status. It's not a HIPAA violation. But the thing for us to remember is that because SWA does not mandate a vaccine, you're not obligated to answer the question. So if you're not vaccinated, you don't have to answer. If you are, you don't have to answer. So you can, in fact, refuse to answer the question. Just know that, if you do it, whichever way you go, a non-answer will mean quarantine. So there's that.
Thanks, Mike. We get a question from Pete. Can we put language in the contract to require a text notification for a 9 a.m. open time award? Let's go ahead and send that one to Scott.
Yeah, Pete, actually, that is part of the proposal, along with shortening up that ELIT umbra, that's shadowed out, and along with doing that, having the text notifications and the ability, the OTAs and the ability to respond to those via your phone actually makes a lot more sense when you shorten that window down. So definitely in the proposal right now.
Thank you, Scott. Brian says, I came in late, but what's the company's current position on bringing back the extos? I read that the company wants everyone back March 2022. I'll throw that one back to Scott as well.
Yes, they're certainly looking to bring back the extos. I don't have a date for when all of them would be back, but you could probably expect some of them to be coming back in the fall. You'll see that show up, an exto return bid show up probably a week before the vacancy comes out, so about 67 weeks prior to the month that they would be looking for them to come back. And you'll probably see, again, some exto returns, and then you might see some new hires start up before all the extos are returned, just because they have a longer lead time for training than a returnee.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, this one is, I think we're going to give this one to Damien. How big of an ask is disability coverage from date of hire versus the existing loss of license that is vested as the pilot earns it with years of service? Can SWAPA please normalize this ask so we understand what could be gaining in other areas in lieu of it, rather than simply saying United has X, we want X? This is from Luke.
Well, that's a big question. All right, I'll do my best to answer that one. So First part is I'd say that we've technically haven't even we've given the rewrite to the company, but they haven't even responded yet to any of our ask. But as I said before, I hate to keep pounding the SEP drum, but that did go very high on the polling side. So remember, you're looking for income replacement, medical replacement, and retirement replacement. We do have an income replacement element, of course, the loss of license now. Medical is covered by the SWAPA VIBA, which needs to be transferred to the company, or the company absorb it or actually run it. And then there's a retirement piece. So the loss of license income is self-funded. So it's not that big of an ask, in my personal opinion. So let me give you an example, and this will summarize everything. I'm long-winded, I'm sorry. So at my age, I'm 43. With the time that I've been here, you get half that with a minimum of 5 years, half that for benefit purposes for loss of license. So I get 8 years of benefit. 8 years of benefit, I'm 43, so my benefit would stop at 51 years of age if I were to go out right now. And so obviously I can't go to age 65. As we talked about before, that your ATP or commercial and your medical certificate are vital in the hiring process, right? Because you want to recruit, you want to retain, you want to reward, and you want to retire your employees, the 4 R's, and that's all big in the benefits world. So that's a big ask, but if you think about it, we're just extending that tail in, and we're bringing the income replacement in a little bit. I know that sounds like a lot of moving parts, but it's not that big of a mechanical piece. So I'm sorry if that's long-winded. When we get more into the negotiations piece of it and we can release some of that information, we will, of course, but it's kind of hard to normalize it right now.
Thank you, Damien. Just want to give everybody a heads up. We will go a little bit long so we can try to get all the questions answered. Just wanted to let the people on the call know that we may go a little bit longer here today. Next question is for Scott. Should we expect Etops flights, not vacancies, to expand on July 30th when the fall schedule is finalized?
At the moment, it doesn't look like the Etops flights themselves are looking to be expanded or doing much more with the Etops vacancies. So there might be some small pluses and minuses, but not looking for any major shifts in the Etops flying right now. Sorry, no frozen peanut butter cookies.
Thank you, Scott. Next question is, how have negotiations been going, and when is the company going to meet us in person, and do they realize we've been working in person this whole time? This is for Jody, and I would also put a really quick plug in here for you guys. We've sent out a video every Thursday after they're done with negotiations, and we do post that on the website, so I would put a plug for people to please watch that if you have questions.
So excellent question, and we thought we were going to meet this time in person just this last week, but the company told us that, yeah, one more time we're going to do one more virtual because they couldn't get all of their subject matter experts in place. That's the biggest frustration right now, is that though there may be 15 people on the call, their supposed scheduling conflicts revolve around usually one person who's a subject matter expert. We will be meeting in person coming up at this next meeting in August. We'll start to ramp up our pacing, as we said in the video, and we'll do at least 4 sections. So we've gotten through the really technical stuff. You'll start to see our cadence increase. And we have pointed out, even as late as today with management, that our pilots are producing revenue for the company and out there traveling in all of this situation. And so at this point, it's not a professional statement for a team to say they can't meet and negotiate a contract for their labor groups.
Thank you, Jody. Our next question is just more of a statement. So when are you guys going to stop with the plumber talk? I think somebody just wants to put that out there. Let's move on to the next question from Pete. I would absolutely love to see a contract language forbidding vaccine and vaccine health passport requirements. Casey or Jody, one of you want to take this?
I'll reply. Actually, I didn't hear the question. I was sitting here thinking about the plumber comment, to which I will comment. We'll stop the plumber talk when we're treated like the professional pilots and the literally last line of defense to safety that we are. And at that point, and upon that recognition, then we'll stop it. You want to give me the question again?
Of course. I would absolutely love to see contract language forbidding vaccine and vaccine health passport requirements.
Yeah, so we presented the contract in 2020 in January. We opened in March of 2020. We did sort of stress test the entire contract with what went on through COVID. So that is something that has sort of been coming to the fore here more recently. So while we all are for the choice, whatever your reason, we will continue to do that. And if it does need to be gone in the contract, we will have that discussion. And I'm not opposed to it at all.
Thank you, Casey. Our next question is, I'm 100% on letting jump seaters down on a weight restricted flight, but when the CSA says she's pulling off 11 passenger volunteers because of weight, why should she clear jump seaters and have the ops agent let them down to the plane, sitting down only to be pulled off? As again, she's taking 11 revenue full fare passengers off because of weight. Makes zero sense. Thank you for all of your hard work. More of a question, but I'll ask if Tom wanted to chime in on that, or.
I can jump in there on that. That was for us the workaround to make sure that a jump seater was able to get down there, let the captain know, and then let the weight work itself out. Let the captain work with dispatch to see if they can get as many people as they could, and hopefully at the end of all of it, the jump seaters. So we do want to see the jump seaters down there. We do want them to introduce themselves to the captain, so the captains are aware. Our captains do a great job of working with dispatch in getting on all the passengers, as well as the jump seaters when they can. Of course, there are times when it's not, but getting the jump seaters down there is absolutely critical.
Thank you, Casey. Our next question, this will be our last question. I know we've been presenting the rewrite for contract negotiations. When do we expect to shift from presenting the rewrite to actual negotiations? I'll go ahead and ask Jody if you want to go ahead and give that answer.
Sure, that's a great question, and there has already started to be some here and there, not just the understanding questions, but some hints of proposals to come. But for certain, we will be finished with all of the education part of the contract around the November timeframe. So the company would be due in December to present what they say is a comprehensive counter proposal.
Perfect. Thank you, Jody. Okay, so at this point, we've answered all of the questions that have been posed to us, and I'm going to go ahead and pass this back to our executive, to Casey, to see if he has any closing remarks.
Yeah, hi. I just want to thank the team. They do an awesome job with the data and working, working from facts, and they've done a great job. So I hope everybody appreciates them being on here and hopefully providing some insight and answering some questions. And just in closing, I want to say, continue to hold the line. Every one of our pilots is out there every day fighting through severe stresses across the entire operation, and it is incumbent upon you to hold that line, to keep safety first. We will continue fighting on this end. We'll continue to make our arguments and support you every step of the way, but never lose sight of what you do and what you do best. We are so appreciative for it. And with that, I'll let Amy close this out.
Everybody who's on the call, thank you for attending. We will have the video up before the end of the day today. We'll put that on the website. So if you run across anybody that you fly with who is interested and didn't get to attend but was interested in the video, it will be up. And with that, I'm Amy Robinson, Director of Communications, and we will close out the session. Thank you all for being here.